I'm Caitlin, and this is Book Chats, and normally I talk about books, but I am actually going to do a short series of videos where I talk about the podcasts that I listen to. I am going to cluster them kind of in a couple ways. So this one is going to be a video about the writing related podcasts that I listen to. I don't listen to a ton, and I'm sure there are more out there. Please feel free to recommend other podcasts in the comments that you would listen to, that you enjoy, that you feel are done very well. So the first one I'm going to recommend is Writing Excuses. One of the things I like about it the most is that episodes are very short. They're between 10 and 20 minutes usually. And it's run by some big name sci-fi and fantasy authors. I know that Brandon Sanderson is one. I know that Mary Robinette Kowal is one. I really enjoy, actually, I would definitely recommend if you're looking for somewhere to start. They are currently doing a series that they call Elemental Genres. So instead of being like, here's the sci-fi genre, here's the fantasy genre, here's the contemporary genre, it's like these can exist within the other genres, but they're really the elemental building blocks of your story and like how to mix them. I've listened to just a couple of those episodes, but I find them super interesting even as someone who just reads books and doesn't write them. So I would highly recommend the Writing Excuses Elemental Genre set. Other writing related podcasts I listen to that I really love is Pub Crawl's podcast. So I have been following Pub Crawl since like before it was even created. I followed Let the Words Flow, which was the previous iteration of the blog. Then it became Publish and Crawl, and I followed that. And then in the last couple of years, I've kind of fallen away. I haven't followed it as much. And then I heard that they had a podcast, and I started listening to it, and it was like those first years that I followed the Let the Words Flow blog and the Pub Crawl blog. And what I love is that it's this look behind the curtain into publishing in ways that you don't necessarily hear about. And they talked about stuff like reading your contract and the weird little legal things in your contract. They talked about like rights for different places, and they talked about like kind of in-depth like things that might go on with a publishing house in a way that was just like fascinating to me as someone who like loves to see how the sausage is made. I'm actually super behind in listening to it, so I haven't heard like the last 8 episodes, but that first set of episodes was wonderful, and I'm sure the rest are as well, and I would highly recommend it if you also want to see how the sausage gets made. Then for interviews, if you are really looking for a podcast that does really great author interviews, I have 2 suggestions. One of them focuses more on middle grade authors and gives shorter episodes. One of them has a lot more YA authors and has very long episodes. The first of those, the one that focuses on middle grade and does shorter episodes, is called The Yarn. And I was introduced to The Yarn because they did an amazing interview with Gary D. Schmidt, aka one of my favorite middle grade authors. He talked about his newest book, Orbiting Jupiter, how he came to write about it, and that was really poignant and wonderful. That was part 1. 2, he talked about writing process, and you know, he has kind of an interesting process in that after he writes his first draft and then like edits it and writes a second draft, he like burns his first draft after he has later drafts. He talked about that, why he does that. He talked a little bit about some other authors and what they do with their process, and it was really interesting, really great, and just interesting to have a peek into his mind. They've also done interviews with some other authors that I love. They did a Raina Telgemeier interview, they did an Anne Ursu interview, and sometimes they just do interviews with these authors, and sometimes they're specifically like, let's deconstruct one of your works with you. And I really like that, and I think it's great. I like how short they are, and I like picking and choosing the middle grade authors I enjoy, but I don't listen to every episode. The other interview podcast that focuses more on YA and is a lot longer, but I think is really great, is First Draft with Sarah Enni. Sarah does a really good job of just asking these interesting questions and getting these authors to talk about their craft in a way that I don't hear in other interviews. I think because they're not really there to promote their work. They're there just to talk to a fellow author, and that is really great. These, unfortunately, are like an hour plus long, so I have only listened to a handful of them. But one of my favorite episodes that I've listened to is actually the episode where she talked to Veronica Roth, because I really respect Veronica Roth. After Allegiant was published and she had a lot of criticism, I really liked the way that she conducted herself under all of that pressure from the fandom. And then the other reason I really respect her is for what she said in this interview with Sarah Enni. I could feel very clearly that she is a growing and evolving author, and that she is growing and changing as a person and as a writer from listening to that interview with her, and I really loved it. And so I would recommend checking out First Draft with Sarah Enni and seeing if any of your favorite authors have been interviewed and listening to those interviews with them. And Veronica Roth is not like my favorite author, but I really enjoyed hearing her interview too. And so I do intend to someday listen to all of the interviews, give or take a couple, but they're just so long. So that's what's hard about the first draft with Sarah Enni, is that they're very long interviews. The last podcast is one that, well, I'll just tell you what it is. It's called Upvote YA. It's a really basic, like 101 publishing journey, and it's run by 4 people who are part of the subreddit for YA authors, or YA writers, subreddit. Anyway, a lot of the advice is stuff that I, had read years ago on PubCrawl or Let the Words Flow or other blogs that are focused on writers and aspiring writers. I think it's very interesting in like just thinking of and being connected to Reddit resources for writers. And so that is kind of why I keep listening to it. It's like an average length. I think it's between 30 and 45 minutes long too, so it doesn't take too much of my time. But if you are someone who would rather hear like these basics of a publishing journey in audio and not like read it on a blog, then like definitely Upvote YA is what I would go with. Those are my 5 recommendations for writing related podcasts. And if you have more recommendations for writing related podcasts that I totally missed, please let me know down below. Or if you listen to any of these podcasts, oh my goodness, yes, please let me know, because I'm always like, ooh, do we listen to the same podcast? Let's talk about them. I hope that you guys got some like value out of that video, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.